Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of Amigos, broadcasting not live from Amigos Studios East in the heart of Hurricane, West Virginia. I'm here with Aaron and Brent, and we are going to talk about Arcade Pool this week.
Excellent.
But Aaron and Brent, before we get into the main event, there's been some happenings in the world of Amiga that we should probably discuss.
Oh, yeah?
And I leave it to you to tell us about those happenings, Aaron. What's new in the world of Amiga news this week?
Well, I'll tell you what's new in the world of Amiga news. I've been at the beach all week, but it was glorious. It was a glorious week to be an Amiga guy at the beach. Unfortunately, there were no Amigas at the beach.
Did you bring a very long extension
I
cord?
did not. I unplugged, I relaxed, I kicked back, and enjoyed a lovely, lovely time soaking up the sun, which you can see my tan. I believe I'm getting some new hair here, and possibly here. And so I expect...
Keep us abreast of those
I
developments.
expect a full afro before Christmas. That's what I'm going for. I want to be... at least I will accept a Garfunkel. You know what I mean?
I would always accept it.
Oh, yeah. So, but we can talk about some of the news that we made as a collective, the ARG/Amigos Retro Gaming Collective made some awesome news this week. And let's talk about first, why don't you talk about this new music that we've just heard?
All right, well...
Because that's something in itself.
Incredible music.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a new theme song that comes to us from Dan Ross. We should also give a special shout out to Amigos supporter Joe the Zombie for actually figuring out what the original theme of the Amigos was.
What was it again? I don't even remember.
It comes from a game called
Projectile by Electronic Arts and Eldrick the Cat Software.
You want to go back and check it out. I put it on there. And it's like the level select music. It was not something that was very obvious to anyone. So kudos to Joe the Zombie for figuring it out. And Dan Ross took it upon himself to re-record the theme and put in some Everything Amiga voice samples for us. And he's a man among men.
Which I
Dan
believe
Ross.
he said he made those samples himself.
That's
didn't
right. He
Yes.
recorded the voice samples himself. So he's a real Renaissance man, Dan Ross. Project Overkill is his SoundCloud page. I'll put a link to that in the description too. Check out all of his stuff. He does all kinds of awesome mod files, including one featuring the voice talent of one Aaron Dowdy.
You're on there as well.
Yeah.
I was when you sent me this over, I was very moved and humbled by the fact that I once finally have appeared in a mod file. I used to love these mod files back in the day. So to hear my own voice coming out, albeit it's the wacky remix that has taken the world by storm, Boat. My kid, every time I say wacky now, he yells at me. Stop it, Dad!
I thought he'd carry around a little hotel bell and just ding the bell.
No, he might as well. I didn't realize that I said it so much on the show or in real life. It's
you're a person that's
a
just
few words,
known by a catchphrase. You're like the dynamite guy.
Oh,
you're
man.
like, what you talking about, Willis?
Oh man!
Say the word, Aaron. Say the word.
No, I'm more than a word. I'm a man. Dreamcatcher put out an article this week, Boat, and you had a good read. Tell us about what the DK was up to this time around.
So, one of my favorite arcade games of all time is a game that's not a hugely famous game, but it's a car game called City Connection.
Oh
no!
And yes, I know. What is it? Your unbelievable love.
I
of this
love
game.
City Connection. Now I know you don't like it. What do you think?
I hate it.
All right, so I'm alone in my love for City Connection. And I've pined for an Amiga version of City Connection. I thought that one didn't exist, but one does. Dreamcatcher wrote up a review and a history of this game called Car V Up. and it sort of looks like Carve Up. I don't know if that was what they were looking for.
I bet
The
it
V
was.
is capitalized.
I bet it was.
But it is basically City Connection with lots of different environments and some extra stuff thrown in for the Amiga. So make sure and check out that review on everythingamiga.com and look for an Amigos Plays. I'm going to do an Amigos Plays of that coming up soon.
Very good. Just hot off the presses, real hot. I looked at this last night. I haven't even blinked it up on the Google Plus. There's a new CD32 compilation. You heard about this?
No, is
the
this from
beer compilation? This is from our good friends at Indie Retro Gamer.
Indie Retro News? Get right or pay the price.
Oh, what are they going to come get me? Me and that guy are like that.
You know him so well. You even know his name. That guy.
He runs the big Amiga Facebook.
His name is Neil Green.
That's right, Neil.
Me and him are actually.
What, you and him are tight?
We go way back.
Is that why you put the smack down on me when
That's
I botched
right.
the name?
Nobody bespoaches the name.
Man, well, I'll bespoke you anything I want. So they've released this thing.
Now,
it's a gimmick.
Is this from Amiga J?
One would assume most of the CD32 compilations are. This is the beer multiplayer compilation. The beer multiplayer compilation. I'm looking over the list of what's on the beer multiplayer compilation, and there's some pretty good stuff that we've actually looked at. Now, some of the stuff, I don't know, I don't get it. You've got like Alcatraz, which granted is multiplayer. It's not something I think about. You've got Blues Brothers. Have you ever played the Blues Brothers game?
We've done an Amigos Plays on it. It's
I did not. I mean, watch that.
Yeah, I played it. It is not a great game.
Did you see the Blues Brothers 2000?
It is not a great film.
Okay, that's right. You've got the Bonanza Brothers. You've got Quack, Rodlin. So there's some good stuff on the comic.
What does the beer have to do with it?
You know, I'm assuming.
Because I know
trying to find that.
At first, I thought that there would be beer featured in these games, but I'm pretty sure that there's no beer featured in Rodland.
Well, it's 50 games,
mm-hmm.
And it looks like it's from Erock.
Oh,
E-A-R-O-K.
He is the programmer of the new release Amiga game. I can't remember it, but Amiga Bill just did a stream of it. It's like a freeway chase or highway chase. So Erock has been busy.
I would assume that by beer it means it gets you some beer.
Mm-hmm.
These are multiplayer
Playing
games.
some multiplayer
Right.
games.
That makes
yeah.
sense.
You get liquored up.
Mm-hmm.
You play Sabotage or whatever.
Alcatraz.
Alcatraz. Which that game was straight up stone cold sober.
That's not a game that you want to be liquored up to play.
No,
You need
no.
your full faculties.
You're liquored up if you're going to Alcatraz.
Right.
And it's on that toilet made grape wine or whatever.
That bathtub gin.
That not good. We released now. How many of the Amigos, Amigathon? Where are we at on the Amigathon this week? You've released. While I was out of town, you released.
I believe
2
that
more?
hour 4 is the latest one,
Right.
and that includes the highlight of Amigathon for many, the D-Paint Challenge.
The D-Paint Challenge. Now, the D-Paint Challenge, I personally feel you got screwed in a little bit because while I clearly was the victor, my D-Paint Challenge actual painting was horrible. The mouse was horrible, and also I was so excited to get D-Paint working that I was devoid of ideas at that point.
It was a struggle to get
And
it
you
up
didn't
and
win. Yeah.
I thought I did
No,
win.
I won.
You didn't win.
I won.
Do you remember that? Is that how you remember it?
Well, we're leaving it up to you, the viewer, to comment on the YouTube page on either this video or Amigathon Hour 4. Who do you think should have been the winner? And we're also looking for submissions for the official mascot of Amigathon 2018, Lay Melangelo, the fifth turtle.
But he's not a turtle.
he's the fifth representative of an ant-like species.
There was a character been so aptly named. I would like to retake that challenge when we get that laser mouth attachment gimmick.
Whoa.
And then we'll see how we do there. Because I can give it enough time. You know, I'm not creative. I can't. I would lose again.
His box will have
My
4
box.
sides this time.
I was gonna really throw pitch a fit, but I can't. I would lose over and over. I want to be creative, I just can't do it. I'm sorry.
Well, maybe in the future we'll have another special D-Paint challenge, involve more folks, and even involve the Amigos community.
That would be fun. That would be fun because D-Paint, man, if you know what you're doing, it's awesome.
Oh yeah, people were sending us stuff all through the marathon that they created on D-Paint that was slightly more impressive.
Can it get any worse? So I'm trying to think, what else did we knock out this week? Of course, we had ARG Presents. Which was Vectrix, which we had a lot of fun doing. Vectrix is one of our favorite consoles, and so we had a good time ripping that thing out.
Fun episode.
And now, Bo, you have an excellent interview. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I had a good fortune to interview Amiga Bill Winters for the Insert Disc 2 show that drops every Friday. He talks about his life with the Amiga, the WOG, the Westchester Amiga Users Group that's up in New York that still continues to meet to this day. And he also shared some of his stories from working in the film industry for the past, 20 years. So lots of stories about Martin Scorsese and the guy from Titanic, whatever his name was.
that guy.
And he's even got some Bill Clinton stories. So make sure you tune in and watch that. That's one of the best interviews that we've done on Insert Disc.
When you told me about this stuff and told me because I had no idea. Honestly, I had no idea that he was this. Big time player. I just thought he was a Amiga guy, like us, And who knew?
Right.
That explains everything. Now, Bo, what are our credentials?
Well,
we interviewed the big time players.
We once saw a photo of Martin Scorsese.
I saw Titanic in the theater and bought the soundtrack.
Oh,
that's right.
You are a big Celine Dion fan.
My heart will go on, Bo, and on. And on.
So make sure you check that out. Again, Insert Disc 2 is a show that it's a different topic every week. Sometimes it's an interview, sometimes it's just us sitting around chatting about different things. But
sometimes we yell about stuff, we complain about politics or the local economy.
Yeah, we try.
We do it all. We badmouth local towns sometimes.
we try and cover all the bases on Insert Disc 2. So yeah, that's what's going on the site this week.
So that's all I got. That is all I've got for Amiga News. Tune in next week for a larger, more robust news section. Now that I'm recovered, tanned, locked, cocked, and ready to rock.
You're like a bronze Greek god.
Yes, I had to take a slight break, that much, but now I'm back. I'm ready to go.
What's the god of sloth?
Take off. Why are you here?
You guys told me to leave and I said no.
Yeah, man, I knew it was something. So, shall we move along?
Let's move on to Team 17's own arcade
pool. Now, just from speaking to you, just the mere moments, because we do not talk off camera, but
never,
we don't associate with each other at any point. But we may have a throwdown on this one. So let's talk about arcade pool. Now, actually, you're probably thinking to yourself, arcade pool. What are you gonna get out of that? Well, let me tell you something. I hit gold. I think I love this. I love when you find a little something out. So. Arcade Pool was actually released sort of like 3 times in a way. You have your 1994 one disc budget release, right? Straight up budget title. And of course, as Boat said, this was put together by Team 17 and it was developed by Antithesis, all right? I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Now, you're looking at this and thinking, what is that? Well, the guy that did the bulk of the work on this thing is a guy named Mario Savoia. Right? I'm pronouncing it all. You can see I've been on vacation. And he has confirmed that the name means antithesis in Italian.
Okay, makes sense.
And he thought it up for Arcade Pool. So this is the only title that he used that under.
So the antithesis of something is the opposite of something.
Right.
So what is the arcade pool? What is arcade pool the opposite of?
You'll have to ask Mario because that's something I don't know. But it meant something. So again, this was developed by Mario Savoia. You had he did the coding and the graphics. He was involved in several other games you may have heard of. This one keeps coming up. The 1000 Maglia.
Oh yeah,
you want to help me out? The racing game that you covered. I think you did an Amiga's play on that.
Oh yeah.
He did the 3D World of Soccer.
Mm-hmm.
He did the he did a cover disc we may have to check out sometime called Arcade Snooka, which one would assume is this with Snooka.
Well, I did take a look at this on my stream.
Did you? You looked at Arcade Snooka?
I looked at Arcade Snooker
So how was
and
it?
Arcade Pool. It was great.
Now you know that you're going in. That's rarefied air there with the snooker.
I've grown to love snooker ever since we did it ever since we covered Jimmy White. I still on occasion will check out highlights of Jimmy White and the Hurricane and all of those guys.
I watched between that and darts. I've picked up 2 things. And one thing I like about it is you're at a pub generally, and people are liquored up.
They're liquored
and so
up.
that makes it way more exciting.
The old videos are the best because they're smoking, they're drinking, they're carrying on.
It was great. Old American Pool was like that back in the day. It's not so much now. So this had a release, as I mentioned, was a disc. Then it came out. There was basically an enhanced version, and then there was a CD32 version. Now, this game, to its credit, of course, this is Team 17. When you boot this up, it detects extra memory or whatnot, and you will give you the benefit of what you have. The CD32 version is very, very similar to the AGA version, except you get this sort of background pool hall noise. And I found out that to get this noise, these guys took a tape recorder to a pool hall and just hit it in their coat.
Wow.
And then they just took that and put it in the game, which I thought that was great. So now you got the little ditty. There's a little ditty.
It's a little ragtime number.
Right. That's the Brimble. He's
Alistair.
back.
Yep.
Now, of course, ATR, Agony, Alien Breed. He's done a ton of that stuff. So now, here's something I thought. This is something I thought was pretty interesting. One of the guys that worked on this was Stefan Boberg. Okay. Now, he was back in the crack game back in the day. That's where he started out in the scene. Right. He ended up getting picked up. This guy developed. He was one of his greatest achievements, possibly his greatest achievements. He developed LHA.
Oh.
Now you know what that is, Britt. Do you remember what it's a compression? Right?
It's what all the WHD load files come on.
Yes, and this was a huge deal, and presumably that's what he did for T17 was the compression angle, which I think is awesome. This allowed their games to be so robust because they had this incredible compression, and it would decompress in memory when it needed to, or on the fly. This stuff we used. It was sort of like when I was on the PC, most of the time we used Zip for stuff back in the old days, but LHA was
PKZip.
It was same. I mean, but it was the same thing. And the story behind Zip is a whole wacky. That's a whole different gimmick right there. So something else I found out about this game. I read this 2 or 3 different places, so I had to confirm it. A fellow that worked at Team 17 was named Rob Northern. Now, does that name anything to you?
No.
Nope. He's the fellow that was responsible for the copy protection. And this game was known to be incredibly difficult to copy.
I've thought a lot about this. What if I would have been, in charge of a publishing house back in the day, or a software development house like Team 17?
Yeah.
I think getting somebody like that on my team, he might have been the highest paid person on my team. If you can get somebody that can develop a very hard decryption, mechanism,
sure,
but still doesn't, keep people that have purchased your game from playing it, like the RoboCop dongle debacle.
Yeah.
He's gonna make his money back in spades.
Right, and you've got to remember, of course, the Amiga was a super pirated machine, so you could come up with, and there were a few computations that, admittedly, I didn't have any special devices. Some people have special disk drives, but I had every program you can have. And there were a few games that I couldn't, like I didn't have this, the ReadySoft Laserdisc games. I could not copy some of those discs. So there was computation out there that could beat practically anything, short of hardware-backed floppy drives, for example, or custom written BIOS in your, or controller chips in your thing. So pretty good stuff. I thought that was neat. I saw that mentioned on Lemon. Got to look at it. Apparently this guy was that was his bag. He was really good at it. Now, did this get copied? Probably. There was also a PC version of this. The PC version is known to not be that good. It was ported. It wasn't Team 17 didn't do it. It was ported over by another company, and apparently the ball physics are wackaroo. So that's a avoid at all costs. So let's talk about the actual game, Arcade Pool. So you when you play this game, you are greeted with a nice little jaunty tune. The credits roll, and then you've got your selection. Now, I will give this game props. It has a million options.
Right.
Yeah.
It's got table color. You can play UK or American ball style. You enter your name. You could have tournaments and all these various game types. You've got 8-ball. You got 9-ball. You've got make your own rules ball. You can house rules. You can do trick shots.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's got practically everything you could think of from a pool perspective. Like I said, the trick shot thing, you could actually take and just move the balls where you want and just try to do a cool shot, which I thought was neat. The tournaments are awesome. You can have 1 to 8 players. You can also have computer players. You can play the computer. You can skip matches in a tournament. You can watch the computer play itself.
Mm-hmm.
The various people that are in the game have varying degrees of difficulty. You can set the difficulty between rookie and pro, which I just left on rookie. I was no way to get right near pro. And you can even select the roughness of the surface of the pool table, which was cool. It had I can't think of much more you could add in terms of gameplay options. Can you? I mean, do you think it pretty much covered the bases there?
Absolutely.
I usually played with the American style balls, but there was the UK style balls were sort of red and yellow.
Mm-hmm.
They were fine.
They may play an 8-ball way easier.
Well, yeah. I thought it was okay. The way you shoot the ball, this is an entirely 2D game. There is, unlike what was the other pool game we played that had the
Jimmy White.
Jimmy White. That was a tour de force technically of 3D pool on effectively a 2D system. This is a tour de force of 2D pool on a 2D system. It's a very simple interface. It literally really doesn't even require you to have any sort of hand-eye coordination.
Mm-hmm.
It is all mouse driven unless you play with the joypad, which I did not play this on CD32. I don't think I'd like the idea of using the mouse or a joypad normally for a game like this, but you could do it on the CD32 because, again, this isn't a game where you actually have to simulate shooting the ball. You set the power, and basically the game shoots the ball for you. Right. So you don't really need the mouse. This is one of the few games you could play with a joystick. It wouldn't be that big a deal. So you're presented with a table, whatever game you're playing. If you're playing just 8-ball or whatever, and so a person breaks. It's a flat over the head view, and you click on the ball you want to shoot. You line up. It gives you a pool cue with sort of a broken diagonal line that kind of tells you the paths you're going to take depending on how much power you put behind it. And then once you've set the power gauge, you hit the button, it shoots, or you hit the right mouse button, it hits the ball, and you watch the balls do their thing. I mean, that's pretty much how it works. What did you think of and I'll throw this to both of you, what did you think of the overall game from a fun standpoint and how it controlled? I mean, did you like playing pool like that?
So, I guess I'll go first. I love this game. I vastly prefer, it's rare when we play a game this week or for Amigos that I kind of lose myself in the experience and I lose track of time. That happened with this game, and I'll tell you the one reason why is because of the single player 9-ball challenge. I'd never seen that before. I didn't even know that there was a variation on pool that was essentially a 1-player game. The way that this mode works is that you get points based on your performance in playing 9-ball. So for every ball that you pocket, you get 500 points. There's a high score setting. The crowd cheers for you when you make a good shot.
You don't have to. Normally, it has to sink a couple balls. or make some kind of because they don't just cheer every time.
No, I don't. In fact, I never figured out why. There would be times where I'd make a mediocre shot and I'd get a huge ovation.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. That's exactly the same thing. I was like, what's going on?
It still made me feel good though. But I thought that as a pool game, if you're only going to own one pool game for the Amiga, it was the one because it's the most complete package. I mean, it's got I don't know if it's got every variation. It's got tons of variations. You can play tournament style with tons of computer players or a mixture of CPUs and real players. The action is fast. You're moving from shot to shot like that. A lot of that has to do with the fact that it is the simplified overhead 2D top-down perspective. But you have full control over your ball in terms of, it's not a dexterity-based shooting mechanism like it is with the mouse. You don't pull the mouse back and fire. You set the gauge with the mouse, between 0 and 100. You decide where on the ball you want to hit it. And then you press the left mouse button and it shoots the ball. So it's entirely skill based, which I like because I've got enough problems playing pool as it is. Having that extra dimension of like, am I pulling the mouse back? What is the mouse sensitivity through the emulator doing to me to make this worse or better? None of that was there. I thought that the option for having music in game was cool. I don't know how, like the tune, just like any tune, will get repetitive after a while, but it wasn't super, super annoying. It would have been cool if Alistair would have recorded, a couple different ragtime tunes, but it does give it that sort of pool hall feel, as you're playing. I thought the ball physics were great. I thought that the sound of the balls hitting the balls was very accurate. And like I said, I like the high score function that you got from the one-player game. It gave you a reason to come back and play it again and again. I enjoyed this game very much more than I thought I would, and I would choose it over the Jimmy White game. In fact, I went and looked at Arcade Snooker, as it's called everywhere else but this room. And I love that too. I thought it was great. It really brought home the fact how much bigger a snooker table is than a pool table. Snooker tables they're like 20 feet tall, and the balls look small because of it. But anyway, this full marks from me. Brent, what do you think?
I am a connoisseur of pool games.
Oh,
I have all the way back to playing them on the arcade machines. The old arcade cabinet where you actually had a part of a stick.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to own one of those.
yeah, those are great. They go for a ton too.
But 2D pool with the arcade where you have so many balls you have to sink to stay alive. I prefer it. This game, however, great ball physics, with the exception the brakes can be a little wonky.
I scratched a lot on the brake.
You can actually overpower your brakes to really drive the ball through, which you can't do. At least I can't do in real pool. By the way, full disclosure, I suck at real pool.
We all do. We're all horrible.
Tons of options in this game. Tons of options. Different modes of play. For 8-ball, I actually prefer the UK version because you don't need the numbers. You just need to know these are either yours or your opponent's.
Right.
And here's the 8-ball. For 9-ball, which is what I played the most on any pool game, and I like playing with a computer opponent. And the computer opponents are fair. I mean, I never jacked the difficulty up to the moon, so maybe they get ridiculous. But I always felt like I had a chance. My biggest issue with this game is the controls. I like pushing the mouse to make to control your stick. I like that you could set spin, and the spin was pretty accurate. Also, one thing that was incredible, if the ball was against the rail, you couldn't put down spin on it. It wouldn't let you. And in fact, it made you hit the top of the ball.
It was context aware, which
Yeah.
a lot of pool games from that time period, I'm sure.
Right, which was that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I was trying to put backspin on it, and I didn't realize quite, how close to the rail was. I was like, game's screwed up. And then I was like, oh no, it's because I'm close to the rail. So it made sense. However, like I said, I prefer pool games where you have to actually push the mouse or push an analog stick to make the movement of the ball or movement of the stick happen, because it adds an element of skill in my opinion. When you just set the power and tell it to go, you're playing geometry at that point.
And what you just said is my biggest gripe with this game. I like especially on a system that has a mouse like the Amiga, where you've always got that mouse. I mean, this would be like playing like World Class Leaderboard or something, where you just tell it how hard you want to hit the ball and then you just click it. There's no chance element of actually hitting the ball. I mean, we complained when we played Jimmy White that there should have been more options, right? If these two games could have a kid, we'd be laughing, because this game has all the options, but the actual game to me was less fun for the exact reason Brent said. I like having the ability to actually go in there with the mouse and do it myself. I like that. Now, I agree. It's funny how this game was. What this reminds me of, these things were a dime a dozen on the PC in the old days. They were just sort of generic pool games. Somebody knocked one off. It was sort of similar to this. This is a much more well done version, but it's the same basic thing, except for the. I don't think I've ever seen a game where you don't actually move the cube.
Yeah,
that I can think of.
Maybe I should amend my original statement saying, as much as I like the way that they remove the dexterity thing, maybe they should have, at least for the power, put like a rising and falling gauge like on World Class Leaderboard or something.
I'd rather just be able to use the stroke with the mouse.
It is sort of odd that they didn't include that.
To me, this is almost like a pool simulation. You're not really playing pool. You're simulating playing pool. You're setting up the shots. You can be super meticulous with your shooting. And with that gauge, and you would think that gauge would help you, and it does, but it's not like you do it every time.
Right.
I will say, unlike a Jimmy White or a virtual pool or something where you use the mouse or something, or some sort of means to move that stick back and forth, when you play this game, it does feel like, it makes you feel like you're better at pool than you are.
You are
Which is cool.
role-playing a person who is good at pool. That's what this game is.
You're right. Something else you mentioned was that the computer was fair. A lot of it depended on who you played against. Different players. There are tons of people in this game that are named people. They're not real professional pool players.
I think they're all named after the Team 17
Well, some of them
people.
are from Team 17. Some of them are their friends. Some of them are people that worked in the magazine industry, including one gentleman who was in the magazine industry that they hated. And he's the worst player in the game. It's his name directly from the magazine. I read this many places. But Team 17, they were vengeful against some of these magazines. I guess they'd give them bad review, or they didn't think it was giving them a fair shake. And so they put a bunch of crazy names in the game. But a lot of it depends on who you play. Some players are better than others, especially when you get in like a tournament situation. You're going. I mean, when you'll know if you're playing with the better players, because they'll be the ones. I don't know if did you guys actually do any tournaments?
I didn't put it in a tournament.
I played a tournament. In fact, I played one last night, and I mean, when you I actually beat one guy, and amazingly, and then but the next guy just stomped me. So I went ahead and watched the how it progressed, and it was you can watch a good game of pool on this, by watching the computer, and a lot of times the computer it reminded me sort of like battle chess. It would sit there and think about what its move was going to be for a little while. It wasn't just like a bang bang operation. It would say okay. And then you'd see it line it up, and that was cool. In fact, I liked every aspect of this game, with that one exception. That was the one thing that sort of brought it down for me a little bit. And even with that, because at first I was like, "What is this crap?" After I played it for a while, I enjoyed it more because it made me feel like a better player, even more than those other games. Just because even with my dexterity, I'm just not good enough to be that good. I felt like a pretty decent pool player. And if you consider that when this was released, it was a budget title. For a budget pool game, you've got yourself a great pool game here. I used to play an arcade pool game that was, I think it was a trackball game. I can't remember what it was. It was just exactly like this. It was an overhead view. This one blows it away on ball physics. I mean, the ball physics are really good, which this sort of has a rep for having really good ball physics, and they did not disappoint. Some of the things, aside from the fact that you don't actually stroke with the cue, there's not a ton of animation on the balls themselves when they rotate.
They don't.
If you play with the American balls, they look. I sort of started going with the UK balls, so I think they look a little bit better. The American balls, it's only like there's like maybe three frames of animation for each ball, which it's not that big a deal. That's kind of getting nitpicky, but I mean, it is what it is.
One other thing that I learned when I was talking to the people in the chat, I think Pixels at Dawn, he's quite the pool player. And he was saying that in UK tables actually don't have beveled edges on the pockets. So it's actually UK pool is actually much more difficult.
That would explain, because I would get these pocket hangers. I mean, I thought they were impossibly close. That must have been what it was.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
I like the idea that you can change the actual surface. I think the options of this were great. I like the fact that you can have 8 people. I mean, you could sit down and play. I could see an 8-person tournament with this, and it'd be a lot of fun with actual humans. It'd be a lot of fun.
Another fun mode that we didn't talk about was Survivor.
Right.
And Survivor comes with a little, one of the things that this game, again, for a budget title, it's insane. It has an online manual.
Yeah.
You can look at the rules for all of the games inside the game. And Survivor, it's funny because it says, this game is often played for a little bit of money to sweeten the deal. And then right underneath it says, Team 17 does not endorse gambling. But yeah, that game, you actually have a set number of lives. And when you miss a ball or you pocket the wrong ball, you lose lives. And it's neat.
And I believe they have speed pool is another game you can play in there. I mean, there are a lot of variances. A lot of them I never heard of. I was like, man, it's what we wanted with Jimmy, with that incredible engine, but they pulled it off. Again, a budget title. I'm not going to hold the 2D against it because it works. I mean, so that's all there is to it. It's a game I would probably go back to as it's a nice diversion type game. Listen to some music. Maybe you're chatting with your buddies on Discord or whatever, and you just kind of pop over to it.
That would be a perfect time. I mean, this is if you don't want to pay a whole lot of attention, you're doing something else, you're listening to music, you're watching TV. This game is perfect for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely perfect.
So I looked up some reviews on this. See how they had the Lemon folks. They're again, we've mentioned this before. They can be a tough bunch. This game was really beloved on there. They give it an 8.2, which is a real high mark. Yeah. And again, consider that this is a budget title. I want to drive that point home because we've seen budget releases, especially in stuff that we haven't covered or stuff that we laughed about because it was so horrible. I mean, very rarely do you get a budget title like soars to the heights of an 8.2 on Lemon. The other magazines of the day, Amiga Computing gave it an 80. Amiga Format gave it a 94, which that's pretty darn good. Amiga Power a 60, so I'm wondering if that's the people that hated them. And then they re-reviewed it in 94 because Team 17 had sent them the wrong beta copy. So they re-reviewed it the next month and gave it a 91.
Wow.
So they turned the corner. That must have been a real bad. Apparently in the copy that got sent, the geometry was all jacked up. And hey, I'll give them credit. They re-reviewed it the next month. CU Amiga gave it an 81 and the One gave it an 82. So still, very few games we've covered on here that everything was in the 80s and 90s. I mean, those are pretty darn good scores. I looked this up on eBay. You can get the CD32 version of this for $16. Or $15 USA. Now, I noticed that it looks like the CD32 version has a couple games on it. It's arcade pool and a couple other things like a comp. So, because I was thinking, I mean, again, we've talked about the CD32 in the past. Can you imagine you buy your beautiful new CD32 and you pop this in and this is what you're playing? It would be I would be crestfallen to say the least because you're playing as something as basic as it gets, basically. I mean, don't get me wrong, it looks good, but I mean, it's just a table and some balls. There's nothing to it.
The more, every time we bring this up, I think people were just happy to have anything to play on the CD32.
You might be right. Anyway, you can get a copy of it for $32 on the CD32 in the UK. Now I looked for some box copies. I found one in the UK, $52. And in Germany, you can get a copy of this for $20. So, sort of all over the map. I did see plenty of copies out there, so it's not like they're not out there to get. But it doesn't look like it's like super hard to find. But overall, when you said we were doing a pool game this week, and I was like, a pool game, what are we gonna do with that? It would actually end up being more interesting than I thought. When you really, what is this missing that would have made it perfect? And it's something that nothing had then, which would be online play. That would be a lot of fun. Now, this game did get a sequel. Did you know that?
No.
Microprose did a sequel to it, not on the Amiga. And from what I read, It was pretty good, and it did have some sort of internet option to it, which would be great. Now, if you could get this game and play it on that online Amiga game site, which we should see
Amiga
there,
Live, yeah.
that would be tremendous.
That would be really cool.
Because you could all enter your names, you could play little tournaments. That may be my mission this week, is to give that a whirl, because this would be a fun game just to watch people play, and you could actually watch a decent game of pool and not just some idiots around. That's if you saw us in person, is what you would get, because we were 3 of the worst pool players I've ever seen. But I liked it overall.
Yeah.
More or less.
Brent, any closing thoughts on arcade pool?
You know, like I said before, I've ran the entire gamut of pool, from the arcade to virtual reality pool, where, you know, with motion controls and really be able to lean down and get your shots. This is probably the best 2D pool that's out there. And that's even with controls I don't like. But if you want a 2D pool that has really good ball physics and tons of options, I think this is where you have to go.
Yeah. And if you guys out there listening now have pool recommendations for the Amiga, what's your favorite pool title? Make sure you leave a comment in YouTube and let us know, because we're always looking for more pool action.
Do you prefer 2D to 3D? I mean, overall, would you rather have that virtual pool sort of?
If I'm playing on a retro machine, absolutely.
I'm talking in general. Let's just throw it out there, because 2D games are still awesome sometimes, and sometimes they're better than their 3D counterparts. Which do you prefer? I mean, if you had the choice.
Boy, you know, I might still prefer 2D. There's something special about the aesthetic, you know, and being able to see the whole table at once without having to mouse around. But I've played the virtual, what is it, VR sports bar that has the pool game. That was really cool too. But I think I'm going to give the edge to 2D, just like in most things in my gaming. I prefer 2D.
What about you?
Having played VR pool, it can't be beat. For realism, for look, for feel, for physics.
But I'm talking, is that a game where you actually go into VR? Like, if you wear the goggles to play it? Let's take that out of the equation.
I still prefer 3D pool.
Because
I like to be able to look down and see where my shots are going, both in real pool and not that I can do anything about it, but I like to pretend like I can shoot things where I want them to go by looking down to see where they're going, and you can't do that in 2D pool at all.
I think I'm going to go with both on this. 2D, really, the 3D aspect of pool, it was an easy thing to make 3D because there's not that much to it. So it's one of the early things that got turned into a 3D VR style. But I mean, the basic top-down view is pretty darn sufficient most of the time, in my opinion, to play a good game.
It depends on what you want to do, though. Do you want to simulate pool, or do you want to role play someone who's great at pool, like this game does?
I think I do. I think I want to role play someone great at pool, because I'll never be able to attain that myself.
Because if you want to simulate pool, 2D doesn't work.
Because fair enough.
It's unrealistic the way you line up shots.
I'm an arcade guy, though, so I would rather take the 2D simulation than the 3D non-simulation. That's I'm going against exactly what I said, but yeah, I think I prefer the 2D.
And for some reason, we lost the last 5 minutes of audio on the podcast. So I'm back again in post-production to tell you that next week we're going to be taking a look at a new Amiga game, the first brand new Amiga game we've ever covered on Amigos in our 3-year history. We are going to be taking a look at Worthy. It should be a good time. We hope you'll come and check us out live. We film every Friday live at 5:30, except when we don't, but this coming Friday we will. And until then, we'll see you next time. Adios.